Hi everyone, welcome back. I'm excited to show you this video today. This is a project that I had done a lot of work on a while ago. It's the Petit Trianon, which was the private estate of Marie Antoinette. Now, throughout this video, I'll show a handful of reference pictures, not for everything, but I did do quite a lot of research for this project. I have down in the description the main sources of my research, which are the official Versailles website and also the blog. This Madam is Versailles. And from there, I was able to pull a lot of really good pictures. I unfortunately have not yet been able to visit Versailles or the Petit Trianon. I do hope to someday. And if you have visited it, I hope that you find this to be somewhat analogous to your tour of the estate. There are a few creative liberties I had to take. For instance, this courtyard is a little bit different than the real one, but it does lead into here. We have the chapel, because the Petit Trianon is not just a single manor, one building house. It's actually a whole complex that has not just the chapel, but also a number of outbuildings. I do believe that the kitchens are located elsewhere. That was something that was in the style at the time because oftentimes kitchens were the source of fires that could spread to the rest of the house. In my last video, I showed off the Grand Common, which is where the kitchens were for the main palace of Versailles. And often a manor house would have a warming kitchen near a butler's pantry, a place to have the food be ready to actually go to the table, if not fully prepared there. But I did plenty of research for the outbuildings here at the Petit Trianon. I wasn't able to find references for all of them, and a lot of these buildings over here are pretty empty inside. But the gardens, I did try to get as close to the real ones as possible. And here you can see a nice view looking down in the formal gardens. Now, the main body of the Petit Trianon, it was quite a notable feat of architecture that's actually influenced architecture since. There is a recreation of it as a mansion in San Francisco. It's a neoclassical style. It's not quite the same as the Baroque that even the Grand Trianon and the main Palace of Versailles are. It was built later. It was in the later 18th century. Initially, Louis XV was building this, and he built it for Madame du Pompadour, who actually died before it was completed. His next mistress, Madame du Barry, did live in it for a time, but once Louis XV died and Louis XVI was crowned, he gave the Petit Trianon estate to his wife, Marie Antoinette. There was a little bit of a scandal at the time, the idea that she would own, in her own personal capacity, this estate. And it was also the source of rumors about salacious things going on, unfounded. There were other sources for rumors with the Petit Trianon that I'll talk about a little bit later. But as an architectural feat, it was very interesting. You'll see here, off of the Queen's bedroom, there was her boudoir. I tried to recreate using some Wedgwood textures, a little bit of it, but it actually had mirrors that could be raised and lowered on pulley systems in front of the windows. There also was an original plan by Louis XV to have a dining table that would be raised and lowered from the ground floor. It was too expensive and they never actually implemented it, but it was a way to kind of experiment. Here you can see the mezzanine of the Petit Trianon. And you see, I didn't fully furnish these rooms. At some point in the future, I'm sure that I will, but I really wanted to get the main public parts of the house done first. And then up above is the attic. And you can see it's quite a maze of rooms. And again, I didn't go through and fully furnish them. It's something that in the future I plan to work on, but it wasn't a priority. I really just wanted to finish the attic so I could put the roof on. I got a little bored of having the Petit Trianon be roofless. I'll also try to work in some fireplaces in some of these upstairs bedrooms. Now, as we go back downstairs, we'll go back through the entrance hall and take a look outside a little bit more. You have a forecourt here. And then, as I said, the formal gardens face another facade of the main house. The formal gardens have a handful of pavilions. It's also flanked by not just the service buildings over there on the left, but on the right, some other buildings of import that I'll talk about shortly. We have a nice view of this facade. I can't remember which cardinal direction this is because, as I'll talk about later, I did have to rotate the entire Petit Trianon estate by about 45 degrees. And that was so that I could have the main house be built at a right angle, not on a diagonal, while also having the formal garden be at a right angle, perpendicular to the house. Now going over here to the other side of the formal gardens, we have some buildings that I used a bit of artistic license on. I figured that we needed some stables for the estate, so I put those in over here. I was able to get Google Map images of the buildings over here, but I don't know exactly what purpose they did serve, what purpose they serve today. See a carriage. The main thing over here is this building right up here. This is the Queen's Theatre. It's actually a miniature opera house that was built for Marie Antoinette to be able to perform. And here you can see we have a reference picture of the real one. It's definitely much more cozy than the Palace Theatre up in the North Wing. And I worked in some gold elements, tried to make it look sufficiently fancy for a Queen's Theatre. And here on the other side of the backdrop, we have a map of the Trianon estates, both the Grand and Petit Trianon. And here you can see where I had to do the greatest bit of artistic license for Versailles, because the Petit Trianon is supposed to be at a 45-degree angle to the Grand Trianon. Well, I didn't want to do that, so I rotated it counterclockwise by 45 degrees. I was debating whether to have it be clockwise or counterclockwise by 45 degrees. Ultimately, I decided that this was better, to have the outbuildings be closer to the Grand Trianon and to make sure that I had enough space for the Queen's Hamlet beyond the main complex. Going back outside, we have some more outbuildings. This one is half inspired by a real outbuilding at the Petit Trianon, and also just kind of a copy of La Lanterne, which is a hunting lodge on the south side of the Versailles Park. I figured that an estate like the Petit Trianon would need at least another house to have important guests or members of the family. We have some stables in the back. It's really just kind of a generalized building that I put in here, kind of to take up some space. This looks out on one of the lawns that extends out from one of the facades of the main house. For doing the lawn, I used bone meal just all over the place, and then using the fill command, I got rid of any tall grass so that it looks sufficiently lush without looking too wild. And then here is the lawn off of the fourth facade. It terminates here with the Temple of Love. And you can see there's the main house with a nice man-made stream. Over here we have a little pond with another one of the pavilions. This one I really like how it turned out. It's nice and compact, but it feels like a place where you would enjoy having a little bit of a picnic away from the main house. Now, looking at more of the Petit Trianon estate, we have some fields. We start to get into the area of the Queen's Hamlet. See, the Petit Trianon had a working farm. Now, this is one of the points of controversy that I had mentioned leading up to the French Revolution. There was this idea that Marie Antoinette would pretend to be a farmer, that she would cosplay as a peasant, which isn't entirely true. The Queen's Hamlet was a model village meant to look very rustic, and it's true that she would spend time there, but it was a working farm, and it was actually a site for education, for scientific experimentation in agriculture, animal husbandry. It was really born out of Marie Antoinette's desire to learn more about agriculture. It wasn't just a place for her to play pretend. This has been a little difficult. I haven't quite finished it yet. You can see it's a very irregular design, meant to look like a general provincial French village. Was able to plant some nice flowers. The houses I was able to make, sufficiently eclectic. This is the main building here where Marie Antoinette had some private rooms. I haven't finished it yet. The other buildings I've, at least put up. Some of these buildings did have actually very ornate interiors. The rustic outside was just a facade. I haven't quite figured out the best way to do that. I also want to put in a working Minecraft farm over here. That's going to be something I'll probably actually just do in survival mode. I'll change from creative to survival, and in the spirit of the original model farm, set up some Minecraft-based, animal breeding areas, probably a smelting shed, stuff like that. I do enjoy trying to work in elements of plain survival Minecraft into my world. And then here we have a consequence of altering the orientation of the estate. This is a much larger area with some pathways and nice trees than is at the real Petit Trianon. But I like the way that it turned out. I worked on having some gentle sloping hills. We have some nice splashes of color with the flowers and with the cherry trees. And this leads us back to the main house. Now we'll also show off a little bit of how the Petit Trianon in my version is related to the Grand Trianon. Here we have a court in front of the forecourt, and it's connected by an avenue up to the forecourt of the Grand Trianon. And you can see I do have them kind of closely sandwiched in together, more closely than in real life. But if I had rotated the Petit Trianon estate clockwise by 45 degrees, then I would have too much of a gap in between the two estates. For those who don't know, the Grand Trianon was originally set up by Louis XIV. He actually had a different house built there. It was made to look like it was a porcelain or faced in China, but that actually weathered very poorly. And after a few years, it had to be demolished. And this was built in its place, at the time called the Marble Trianon. Trianon coming from the name of a village that was raised on this area to build the estate. It was a place for Louis XIV to get away from his strict self imposed court life at the main palace. And it was used by subsequent monarchs. And even after the French Revolution, Napoleon had the Grand Trianon as one of his residences. Even today, it is used for certain government functions in France. And it has its own gardens, as you can see here. Pretty expansive pathways and bosquets. I tried to make it different enough from the gardens and the park of the main palace. The hedges are a little bit lower. That's also partially because I don't know exactly what this park looks like from the ground, or even what it looked like back in the day. But I like the way that it turned out. It feels a little bit more natural than some of the formal gardens of the main palace. And it did take me quite a while to lay out all of these pathways and avenues. And here you can see them leading back towards the Petit Trianon. Now, in relation to the rest of Versailles, the Trianon estates are here on the north end of the cross-shaped Grand Canal. There's the north end. And there's a nice tree-lined avenue that goes from the front of the Grand Trianon all the way back to the main palace. Here we'll zoom on back. And it comes out near the Fountain of the Dragon. And here is the north wing of the main palace. I hope that you enjoyed this little look at my Petit Trianon project. It's something that I'm very proud of. If you've been there, please let me know what you think. If you haven't been there, still let me know what you think. Thank you for watching. Please see my other videos. Take care.